Welcome to King of Honor. I'm your host, Man Shane Spoon, along with my good buddy, the Honorable Jeff, who was in mid-sentence when I hit record.
Yeah,
So,
that's how you cut me off when you don't want to hear me talk anymore. Just hit record.
well, you said let's go, and then you said another thing to say. So
Anyway, what we were talking about is this week in wrestling. There really wasn't much. I mean, AEW had a couple of decent shows. Gave me the worst Christmas present ever last night. But outside of that, there's really not much to talk about. So we're talking about possibly doing some year-end awards and where we think stuff rates and how difficult it is this year. For me personally, because I've been kind of in my AEW bubble the last 4 or 5 months. I've been checking out NJPW, especially NJPW Strong. I really love what they do there. And MLW here and there, and of course GCW. But Ring of Honor really fell off the last 7 months of the year. Impact has been nothing to me since February. And of course, I don't watch WWE programming. So there's so much greatness that happened in AEW alone that most of my awards are probably going to end up being AEW, with some NJPW and MLW mixed in. And of course, one of my wrestlers of the year is somebody that, if you've been listening over the last few months, you'll definitely know how much I appreciate this guy and everything he's done for this business this year, starting back with that 2-hour Iron Man match he had at the beginning of the year.
I was thinking about you had started off talking about the worst Christmas present ever.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
and I was thinking about that this morning. Like, doesn't it feel like like already, and I know this is going to be maybe an unfair comparison, but doesn't it feel already like Cody Rhodes is the John Cena of AEW?
Absolutely.
The fans are against him. He won't turn. And he's even come out, like, he even came out on national TV and had that awkward speech where he said, "Guys, I'm not going to turn." And it's like, and then last night they were acting like in the ring, like, even though they had mentioned, during the show, and reportedly Cody even said, between Dynamite and Rampage, "Hey guys, you don't have to boo me. You're not on TV yet," or something like that. They still acted like at the end of the show, like the crowd was all into this fucking ceremony, right?
But it was like legitimately boos happening, and he was still acting like he was only hearing the cheers.
Exactly.
It was really embarrassing. And the other thing that I noted too that was kind of weird to me is that Sammy really played the heel in the interview prior, with him dissing Arn Anderson and the way he talked to Jericho. He was playing the heel. Mark Henry was playing the heel, bad mouthing Cody's recent decisions, and how he had 1 foot in and 1 foot out the door. And then during the match, Sammy was the one that was doing the heel tactics. So they really tried to make this a babyface thing for Cody as far as the production went. And of course, the fans just are not buying it. And another thing that really, really irks me, why is Cody not only the only ever 2-time champion, he's the only ever 3-time champion in AEW history?
It just feels so nauseating when he's got that championship. Right. Because, and especially with them trying to promote him as a babyface when he has that championship, because creating that championship was a heel move. You and I said it. You and I said it at the time, but he's been portrayed as a babyface ever since AEW has started. But creating that championship, because he himself set a stipulation that if he didn't win the world championship, he would never wrestle for that title again. And so he created the TNT championship, so he had a title to fight for.
Mm-hmm.
And so him holding that credit. So him holding that title is always going to feel like the biggest heel in the company,
And I'll give him credit. He did put on some stellar matches in his first run. The Brody Lee thing really annoyed me. Brody did Brody things, came out and just demolished Cody, and it was great. And Cody spent a week and a half off TV, and then came back to have a dog collar match just to win the title back again. It was really, really a letdown on what they could have done with Brody. And then for having, oh geez, I just lost my train of thought. For having Sammy beat the most dangerous person in AEW to only hold the belt for 2 months and then lose it back to Cody was really disappointing. And I don't know how anybody in AEW felt like this was the Christmas present we should have gotten.
No, I don't either.
It doesn't make sense to me.
No, it was awful. I was really, really let down by the result of last night's show. You know what I mean? It would have been, to me, Sammy and Cody having the very first match on Dynamite ever, and then ending Rampage last night with Cody losing to Sammy would have been perfect. But instead, no, we've got to have Cody be the three-time champion now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I did not enjoy it at all, and it really frustrated me. And it's the same thing with Dynamite. I mean, Dynamite was another excellent show, but the whole Adam Page, Bryan Danielson, we're gonna go to a judge's ruling was kind of a letdown.
No, it was wonderful.
See, I thought it was a letdown.
Why?
I don't like judges' rulings, I guess, in wrestling. That's not my thing.
Yeah, but you really think it's going to go an hour and the judges are really going to rule on it?
No, but it's like they could have done a different stipulation. Danielson beat the hell out of him in the match to where he was bloodied. So why not have a hardcore match or a lights out match or a death match or anything that raised the stakes a little, as opposed to just another wrestling match. And if by chance it does go an hour, we're going to go to a judge's decision.
Well, no, I think the idea is Heyman wants to prove he can out wrestle Bryan. He doesn't want to prove he can beat him in a hardcore match. Doesn't want to prove he can beat him in a bull rope match or whatever the hell. He wants to prove that he can beat him straight up in a wrestling match. And this is a way to do that. Because and the other thing is that Bryan's contention was, if there had been judges, I would have won because I out wrestled you. Whereas clearly, if there had been judges, Paige would have won because Paige was about to get the victory when the timer expired.
Right. Exactly. So two more seconds, and Paige would have won that match.
Right. So I mean, it was also a kind of a way to show like the delusional nature of Bryan Danielson.
That is one thing, and I'm gonna kind of divert here, but that is one thing that has always impressed me about wrestling. They're in the heat of a match, and to have that kind of timing, to know exactly when the bell's going to ring, and you hit your finisher and maybe take a half a second to start moving to get to the cover and just barely get there and lose by 1 second. That kind of timing has just always impressed me.
Yeah, it does. And that reminds me of like the Super Brawl 3 match between Too Cold Scorpio and Chris Benoit, where they timed it so well that Scorpio actually got the pin with 1 second left in the match.
Right.
As the referee was, as the referee is doing the count, and I think it was David Penzer is doing the 5, 4. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that time of that match was spectacular as well.
Whenever I see that with the timing like that, it just blows my mind. It blows my mind that these guys are that good at what they do.
Yeah.
And they just know during the match, you can just tell where they take a half a beat longer to get back on time, or they speed it up just a little bit to get back on time. And I know that the referees probably tell them, okay, you guys, you got 14 minutes left. You got 10 minutes left. But the way that they move in the ring to get it to that perfect timing like that just blows my mind.
Yeah. And that's another thing is like, Bully was talking the next day after this about how, it's not like a sport where there's a time limit going on. It's
right,
because not only do you have that physicality going on, and you have to keep track of the timers are also have to make sure that you're like pay attention to the crowd and telling the story, remembering where all the spots are and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. So it really is just an incredible amount of things they have to put together in that time frame, you know.
Right. Yeah, and to get it down to a split second like that just blows my mind every time it happens.
Right.
I mean,
And he was specifically talking about like an hour-long match because not only are you getting blown up physically, but also, you know, you're getting
mentally
blown up
and
mentally, and you have to remember all the stuff that's supposed to happen in that hour, you know.
right. You know, and the other thing too, I mean, you've seen it in the reverse, where there's supposed to be a time limit draw, and the referee goes 1, 2, and then kind of holds a little bit in the air for a little while just before he can, so that the bell rings before he can do it. So you see it the reverse, but when it happens that smoothly, it's just a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty to watch, and I think that just added to everything that was involved in that match and how great that match was.
Yeah, the reverse of that is this is a pet peeve of mine, so I'm gonna bring it up since since we're talking about timing anyway. But the reverse of that is when you see an Iron Man match, and you know you can see that the wrestlers can see the time on the clock, but they'll still tap
Right?
out with like 2 seconds to go because they can't hold it for 2 more seconds of pain. You know,
Gresham versus Lethal,
yeah, or
the worst Iron Man match of all time.
yeah, or you know, Randy, Orton and Cena did
Orton
that
and Cena. Yep.
in the best Iron Man match of all time. You know,
Yeah, that is
and
true.
and uh, same thing happened with Sasha Banks and Charlotte. You know, so
Didn't Banks and Bailey have a similar issue too?
I don't
In the greatest women's Iron match of all time?
did they have an Iron Man match, Banks and
Yeah,
Bailey?
well, back at Takeover when Bailey finally won the belt and Banks went up to the main roster. They had a 30-minute Iron Man match as the main
Okay,
event.
okay, that's right,
I
they
can't
did.
remember what Takeover it was, but I remember there was some kind of screwy finish to that one too.
Yeah, because it wasn't Takeover Brooklyn. That was their first match, right? So yeah,
Right.
I don't remember which one it was after that. Yeah,
Actually, I think it was Takeover Brooklyn.
was it? Okay.
I believe it was. Yeah. Oh, I feel so bad for NXT. Oh. And we're not even going to go down that road because we'll be doing that for 2 hours.
So so I've been trying to like rack my brain and see like who else really would qualify for this, but because it's really hard for me to be like there's very few years where one guy stands out so far above everybody else, right? I mean, it happened a couple years ago with Will Ospreay. You know, it happened maybe the year before that with
Matt Hardy
With
or Matt Jackson.
Matt Jackson and you know Tommaso Ciampa were like
Yeah.
right neck and neck the entire year. But this year, like I don't know how you could not have. Now, before I say this, before I finish that sentence, I do want to understand. I understand in the company
I,
that we don't watch, Roman Reigns has had a fantastic year as well.
okay, so
But
before you say it, you've got 2 names on your head, and it doesn't matter which name you pick. I've got a solid argument for the other one. I'm having the same problem with my wrestler of the year. There are 2 names that I feel have been head and shoulders above everyone else.
there's 2.
Um, and it's a flip flop between the 2 as to which way I go.
Oh, see, I've only got Kenny Omega. It's got to be Kenny Omega for me.
And for that, you know, and I was on Kenny Omega. I kept saying it all week long. Kenny Omega. There's hands above. But look at what Bryan Danielson has done. Not just in AEW, but in WWE. He main evented WrestleMania. He
took 6 months off.
He took 4. He had a stipulation. He had a stipulation where he was going to retire or going to leave the WWE if he lost the match, and he held true to it. He put on bangers across WWE. He came to AEW. He's wrestled damn near every night, every show, and put on a banger on every single one. I mean, if you look at the last 5 months, I would say 10 of the top 15 matches have included Bryan Danielson.
Okay, I mean that's a fair assessment. At the same time, I feel like
But Kenny, like,
I feel like in the same way that you can't really say Kurt Angle was one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time because he only had like a 5-year run there. You also can't say that Bryan Danielson is wrestler of the year when he only wrestled for about 6 months out of the year.
no, he wrestled through May. He took June, July, and August off.
WrestleMania isn't in May, so that's not possible.
No, WrestleMania wasn't his last match. He had 2 more matches. He had 2 more pay-per-views after that. His career-ending match, because WrestleMania was that triple threat with him and Edge and Roman Reigns.
Okay.
And then he wrestled his career match, I think 2 months later. His WWE career on the line, like 2 months later. He took June and July off in the early part of August, and then debuted at the end of August.
Okay, fair enough.
So he only had 3 months, and when you look at it retrospect, Kenny's been out for 2.
No, he is not.
Middle of November.
Yes, is it the middle of December yet? Yeah,
It's
it
the
is.
end of December, dude.
Yeah, so it's been it's been a month and a half. It's not 2 months, it's a month and a half.
But the biggest difference too is
Kenny also defended 3 championships in 3 different companies too.
Okay, but the biggest difference too is Danielson, since debuting with AEW, has wrestled every week. I think this week might be the first week he has not had a wrestling match on either Dynamite or on Dark. Kenny would go 3-4 weeks without wrestling and then have a 3-man tag team with the Bucks, and then go another 2-3 weeks without wrestling, then wrestle for a special show. Now, I'm not going to say, like, if you had said Bryan Danielson, I'd be on the other side of this going, yeah, but Kenny held 3 titles. He defended 3 titles, and won against other companies. He was part of this whole Forbidden Door thing. He had, he's the longest reigning AEW champion of all time. He made sense of a horrible storyline with Moxley getting cheated when Moxley was the one who originally cheated in their gentleman match. He successfully turned heel. There's so many great things about what Kenny did that, like I said, no matter which one of those 2 names you picked, I had a legitimate beef for the other guy being the right choice.
Kenny also, the other thing that Kenny did was have several 4 to 5-star matches when he really shouldn't even have been in the ring in the first place.
There's that too.
And he also had, maybe the best match of the year in 2 different promotions. That match against Rich Swann at Unbreakable at Rebellion, and then the match against Hangman Page at Full Gear.
And then the match against Daniel Bryan Danielson
on Dynamite.
And then when you look at Bryan Danielson's thing too, you had that 60-minute against Page. You had the 30 minutes against Kenny. Then you had Minoru Suzuki on YouTube. Then you had his Full Gear one against who the hell did he just wrestle at Full Gear?
Full Gear against Miro.
Against Miro. He had that match against Eddie Kingston. He had, and that's just in AEW. You look back at what he did in WWE. That triple threat match only worked because of him. His career.
I would know. I didn't watch a single thing from WrestleMania.
I kind of when I started to really question my decision on whether it be Kenny or Bryan Danielson, I did go back and watch those 2 matches against Roman Reigns, and they were fantastic matches. And I hate the WWE product so badly that I won't watch the greatest wrestler of all time, but I did enjoy those matches immensely.
See, now the other guy that I had in my had where he's probably a solid number 2 for me. And now you might be questioning, might be number 3 because Danielson really has been fantastic this year. So let's just say, so let's call. So my pick is Kenny, and I would probably do the dreaded Jeff thing of saying Danielson's my 1A.
I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to say it's a first place tie. It's okay. Like legitimately either one of those 2, you can make a legitimate case for. You can legitimately say this guy did better, but wait a minute, this guy did better too. For me, straight across the board. It's not a 1 and 1A. It's number one. These two are my top pick. I cannot distinguish between the two of them. I think they both had incredible years across multiple promotions. They did things that nobody has ever done in the wrestling business before. You know, they showed up, hurt, not hurt. They put on impressive matches. Their workload was fantastic. I mean, Kenny's obviously was a little bit less than Bryan Danielson's, but they both had tremendous matches throughout the year. It's I cannot pick between the two of them, and that's why I said no matter who you say, I'm going to have a legitimate counterpart argument on it. So those are my 1 and 1. There is no 1A. There's nobody. Neither one of them is above the other one in my eyes.
Okay, so then let's I'll agree with that. I mean, I'm going to say Kenny Omega is still number one for me, but I can understand. But I would really have to I think really consider what the argument that you made, and I might end up changing my mind. So
right.
so because yeah, I mean I don't think that I can come up with. Well, I will say this, I think Kenny Omega was probably in my 3 favorite matches of the year. So I probably would have to put him maybe my 4 favorite matches of the year. So I probably would have to put him, still elevate him number one. So
and that's fair enough. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not gonna. It's opinion based. For me, there is no. They're a tie, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Up until Thursday night, I legitimately have been sitting here this last week since we talked about it. Going, there's nobody better than Kenny. Nobody better than Kenny. I mean, Jesus, Kenny. And then I saw that promo on Wednesday night, and I was like, wait a minute. So I started thinking back just about his AEW career, and I'm like, holy crap. Then I started looking into what he did in WWE the beginning of this year, and I was like, it's the hardest choice I've ever had to make. The only harder choice I've ever had to make was moment of the year this year, because we had that 1 week that had like 47 moments.
I'm so sure. I think there's a similar discussion we had on in the tag team division, honestly. But
yeah.
But let me tell you who I think also deserves discussion here. And you can poo-poo me if you want to, but I think at the age of 34, Jonathan Gresham really came into his own this year as a professional wrestler and a breakout star. He dominated. It was his idea to bring back the pure title in the fall of last year.
Yep.
And since then, he has just been absolutely on fire. Whether it's a singles match, whether it's a tag match, whether it's a 6-man tag, it doesn't matter. He finds a way to get his style in there and find a way to break down his opponent in some way. His promos have been fantastic. He's led his own stable and done something that I don't think either of us ever would have expected to be able to do by doing that. He's starting his own promotion next year. Jonathan Gresham has been one of the joys in what to watch in professional wrestling this year, in my opinion.
Now, it's funny that you say that, because he's your number 3 behind those top 2.
He is. Yeah.
For me, he's my number 3. But because I cheated and have 2 number 1s, I actually have one guy ahead of him.
Okay.
Jordan Oliver.
See, Jordan Oliver is more like in a rising star category for me. I mean, yes, I've really enjoyed him a lot this year, but I don't think I can put him above like these 3 guys.
I have to look at it as far as entertainment value goes for me.
Sure.
Now, yes, he's a rising star, but when you think about it, how much I disliked him last year, and then when I saw that 2-hour Iron Man match, I was like, holy crap, this kid's got some talent. And then watching him on MLW and all the GCW shows. And then you'd mentioned earlier this week about how he's the East Coast ace and the young, dumb, and broke. So, beginning of this week, I kind of looked into some of his other matches, because you can find them on YouTube. They're all over the place. The amount of entertainment that I got out of Jordan Oliver this year supersedes any talent that comes after this. Because not only do I think he's talented, he's entertaining, he's good on the mic, he's a great babyface, but he's also had his moments where he's played a heel and done really well at that too. I just think entertainment-wise, for me and what I'm looking for in wrestling, he's my number 2 behind those 2, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, he's probably in, let me think. Honestly, he's probably in the 5 slot for me. Because I've got to put somebody else that has done similar entertaining things above him.
See, now my last three that I have in this category did not give me the entertainment, match quality, or the total package like Jordan Oliver did.
See, number 4 for me. Let's do it this way. Number 4 for me, trademarked his new nickname just a little bit ago. He is the Death Match King. He has been absolutely incredible in GCW as a heel.
He's my number 4. And an incredible face and impact and an incredible heel in NWA.
Yep. Exactly.
He's my number 4.
And getting his fiance over in both promotions incredibly well. I have enjoyed Matt Cardona so much the latter half of this year.
I have too.
Yeah, he's been incredible.
I felt like his character work has been insane. The fact that he's a successful, like one of the most hated heels in GCW, and then the biggest baby face in Impact.
Yeah.
That kind of work alone is just amazing that you can pull that off simultaneously. And his character work, I just didn't feel like his match quality quite matched Jordan Oliver and Jonathan Gresham. But it's funny that I had Gresham at number 3 and you had Cardona at number 4, and that's what you had as well.
Yeah, I just feel like Oliver doesn't quite have the character chops yet to, I think Cardona's character chops kind of, and he's still, he's put on entertaining matches to me.
Oh yeah.
It was enough to just, I think his character, he's so good in his character, and it just over, and the heat he gets from the crowd to me, and me too. Like I was with the shit out of him at the Art of War games, Yep. So I mean, to me that just slightly. I'm with you. Like I'm just so in love with Jordan Oliver's work right now.
Yeah.
And seeing how he's progressed from the time where he was just like this sour pea, this kid with the the douchebag face we couldn't stand, to seeing his work. I mean, you can tell, and now that's that Tony, you can tell that
douchebag face that you can't stand is Tony Deppen.
It is. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard not to put him in the category like this too. But yeah, Tony Deppen, because he is so good as a heel, and he does pull out things in every one of his matches where like, how the fuck did he do that?
Right, exactly. Yeah, he's impressive.
Yeah,
he does some impressive work. But yeah, and I kind of cheated because that would be 5 for me and 5 for you. But because I cheated and put 2 people at number 1, and maybe this should have been an honorable mention, but I really could not truly decide between those top 2 people. But ZSJ, I felt ZSJ has had an incredible run all year. His run in the G1, those first 5-6 matches he had in the G1 were outstanding. Even in losses, his work was amazing. And then of course you can't forget his match earlier this year against Ospreay,
which I still have never seen.
Oh my God!
No, that was last year, wasn't it? Or no, was it?
It was earlier this year. It was like.
Was it?
I want to say it was like April.
I thought it was last year for the British Heavyweight Championship.
No, that was this year. It was the beginning of the year. It was.
I thought it was right before COVID shut everything down.
Will Ospreay versus ZSJ. Well, I'm thinking this is from New Japan Cup is the one I'm thinking about, not the.
Oh, from New Japan Cup. Okay. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
His match against Ospreay from the New Japan Cup that was in what, March? Yeah, March. That was just an incredible match. I felt like what ZSJ did during the G1, especially with Naito, then Shingo, and then followed it up with his match against Kota, was stuff a legend. I was so impressed with ZSJ this entire year that I guess you can call him number 6 and an honorable mention for me if you really need to break up the top 2. But that's just mine. I think he's deserving of being in the discussion as well.
Yeah, he is, and you didn't even see all his matches. So
No, I didn't. I didn't.
because
I just,
there was that series I told you about where they were kind of trading back and forth between Dangerous Tekkers versus Naito and
Sonata.
Sonata, and you never watched those, so
I think I watched the first one, but then I ran out of time.
oh, okay. Yeah, and that kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about with the tag team ranks. I really don't know how to separate like Dangerous Tekkers, the Briscoes,
The
Lucha
Bucks
Brothers, and the
and Lucha
Bucks.
Brothers. Yep, I don't either.
I mean, there's just, I guess if I really had to, I would say I would cheat a little bit and say that I was so entertained by the Briscoes having their match against each other on the farm that they would elevate it just a little bit above those other ones to me. But I mean,
Well, and
but those four teams have been just so neck and neck the entire year.
yeah, they have. They really have been. I mean, with them showing up on, and I've got to kind of give some um credit to SG uh SGC as well. Second Gear Crew.
Okay, yeah,
Matthew Justice and Mance Warner. I think the stuff I've seen from them has been incredible as well. But it doesn't touch those top four.
no,
It really doesn't. And as far as those top four go, any order you want to put them in, that's my top four.
yeah.
Doesn't matter. You put them in any order you want, and that's my top four.
Yeah, see, SGC wasn't going to factor into this formula. The other team I thought about was MSK. I thought MSK, the little bit that we watched them in NXT was on fire as well.
They reminded me too much of DX, not necessarily New Age Outlaws, where
Interesting.
they felt like they could have been, they really felt like had Trey come with them, it could have been any variation of the two. Or of the three. I mean, they've never truly felt like a legit tag team to me. They've always felt like a trio, and that trio could be anyone, and the tag team could be any one of the three.
Yeah, that's fair. They do feel like there's something missing when it's just Wentz
When it's just, yeah.
and Dez. Yeah.
But without Trey, they really fell off. I mean, I thought some of the comedy stuff they did on NXT before I stopped watching it was entertaining, but I felt like there was just really something missing without Trey.
Yeah, that's fair.
As far as like maybe my fifth tag team would go, God, I don't even know. I mean, outside of those top four, maybe FTR, probably FTR. If I had to, and FTR is just a nudge below those top four, I think, if you think about it, because they've had a hell of a year too, entertaining. They've, been able to flip flop factions without anybody really caring.
If I had to if I chose a fifth, it would probably be the Good Brothers. It probably would not be FTR.
Good Brothers too had a solid run.
Because they really were, they showed up in three different promotions, right? So I mean, they were
Was it three? Did they show up in?
Were they in New Japan? Were they in one of the New Japan Strong shows?
They might have been in one of the Strong shows, but they definitely weren't in NJPW proper.
No, not in proper, but I thought they were on Strong. So.
It's possible, maybe the one in Las Vegas that they had.
Yeah.
I don't remember it if it did happen. FTR though, if you look at FTR, they in AAA, AEW, they showed up at Ring of Honor. They're the AAA champions. I think FTR deserves to be in the conversation, but tag teams this year have been so hard to pick. I mean, just
yeah,
the Bucks, their heel turn and just their swarmy, hateable, punchable faces heel turn that they've done, plus still delivering quality matches. The Lucha Brothers, you have to include them just because of Ray Fenix, but Penta holds his own as well. Dangerous Tekkers, they've been probably my favorite Japan tag team since they became a tag team.
Yeah.
I really think, why am I forgetting his name? I keep wanting to call him Ishka, but that's not it. ZSJ's, yeah, Taichi has really, since his Never title run, has really come into his own and become a great wrestler. And I remember you and I both used to mock him, how boring he was and everything, but he's really gelled. And him and Zach together are amazing. And of course, the Briscoes. the Briscoes with what they did with winning the GCW championship. They've got the, they went out on top in Ring of Honor. Like you said, they had their little feud with the On the Farm fight that they had. There was so much great storytelling from them. And then I've got, those last three. I mean, it's Good Brothers are there. FTR is definitely there. In fact, I think FTR might be leading the pack of the final three. And then, like I said before, SGC. I think they were outstanding as well all year long in every match I saw them do. And it's funny that in our top, our first two things, a promotion that wasn't even on our radar in March has, for me, a tag team of the year and a wrestler of the year in it.
Yep.
And that's GCW. And to be honest, if I really had to bury it down, they've got a moment of the year and a match of the year too.
Yeah, they really have become a star in the wrestling industry for sure.
Right. Yeah. And they weren't even on our radar until what, about March? Well, they were for you because you watched some of their shows last year. But for me, they weren't even on my radar until you brought up that Deppen versus Jordan Oliver match. And that was in, I think, March or April that you told me about it.
It was later than that. It was probably middle of the year. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
So they weren't even on my radar until that match. And now, I can make a legitimate case for four different categories. And speaking of which, the other hardest category that I had to do, and I'm just not even going to try to rank these because there's just so many of them. But that brings me to moment of the year. And one of the moments of the year was RSP getting thrown off the top by Warner and Justice, getting thrown off the top of that scaffolding through the glass tables and light tubes. Right. For me, that was a moment of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been so many, like you said, there's been so many. I mean, to me, for moment of the year, I mean, it would have to be CM Punk. I mean, there's no getting around that for me for moment.
And see, this is where I go back and forth and why I'm having such a hard time of it, because when you look at moments of the year, CM Punk has to be there because of everything it brought. But we knew CM Punk was going to be there for 3 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
Where one of
it didn't change my emotions though.
No, and that's why I'm saying it. But as far as for me, like a true moment of the year would have to have that surprise factor. And I think and that kind of rules out Daniel Bryan as well, his appearance. I think for me, looking at moments of the year, it's hard for me to go against CM Punk. I'm not going to lie. It's hard for me to go against the RSP moment where he got thrown through the stuff, but also Adam Cole's surprise at All In. He wasn't even on the radar as coming to AEW. He was in talks 2 days earlier with WWE about extending his contract.
Standing in line to go into that show, because I was there for that show. People were more convinced Adam Cole was going to be there than Bryan Danielson was going to be there.
Oh, really? See, yeah. And I'm going from sitting at home and everything. I mean, it came as a complete shock to me that Adam Cole was there. Like I figured kind of in the back of my head that, he was going to go to AEW, his contract was up, but all the rumors leading up to it where he was at backstage at Raw the night before or at SmackDown 2 nights earlier. And they were talking about how he was going to be, re-signing and moving to the main roster, and he just extended his contract to work through and put over Kyle O'Reilly, so he was proving that he was a WWE guy, and it's just everything that led up to it. So when he walked out with the production music and all that stuff, to me that was one of the biggest shocks of the year. The other one was Ospreay showing up on Strong and his whole shtick that he did with the dojo, the LA dojo and Shibata and everything he's done since then. He's another guy that I seriously contemplated for Wrestler of the Year, but I couldn't put him above those other 6 guys.
Another big moment of the year was when the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man cost the Elite the 8-man tag.
Yeah,
So,
with it being Adam Page and not Brandon
yeah.
Cutler. Yeah, that was another great moment. I mean, there were so many that it's hard to even, as much as I hate to say it, silly things like Moxley and Kingston running into the Elite's bus. Sue showing up with Trent a couple weeks ago. There were so many moments that were, and then if you even want to take it a little bit further, did you see the end of Dynamite
Yeah.
on Wednesday? That bump that MJF took, that was another one of those oh my god moments. So it just, there were so many moments that it's really hard to even narrow a top 5 down.
And one you didn't mention is that honestly would, if it wasn't for the CM Punk thing being so, deep into my heart, just the way the crowd reacted, the way the announcers reacted, the way I reacted sitting in my living room home watching it live. Ric Flair showing up in AAA at
Yep,
AAA
that was
Mania.
another
Yeah,
another good moment too.
yeah. It was incredible. It was just it was an incredible moment. Like nobody knew he was there. No. The announcers apparently didn't even know he was there. You could tell by they were so excited to see him.
The
You
way they
know.
were acting.
Yeah,
Another
yeah.
moment of the year would be Funchess beating Deppen.
Oh,
I mean, there's just so many. There's so many. Just, and that's, we're only talking about 3 companies too. I mean, if you look at some of the other stuff that happened in Impact and Ring of Honor, and I mean, Ring of Honor, let's talk about that final show. That final show could be a moment. Because there was, with the exception of the ending, of course. I mean, yeah, it was great seeing all the locker room come down to cheer on Gresham and for Gresham to finally go out on top. But what about Red Titus finally winning gold, singles gold? The Briscoe standing tall and then FTR showing up. Release the Titan and EC3 continuing. God only knows what EC3 is doing.
yep.
That show alone, look at all the this just great moments that there were. So yeah, moment of the year, it's really that's my most difficult category. I cannot come up with one that I would pick above everything else.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a category we've done very much before either. So
No,
yeah,
I think this
but
might be the first time we've done it, to be honest with you.
yeah. I mean, and I totally get where you're coming from. Like that, there's been a lot of moments this year. And actually, I had mentioned Hangman Page was, I mean, Kenny Omega was in my top 4, my 4 favorite matches of the year. What about that moment to start that 10-man tag where we get those entrances from, people were shocked by that Space Jam entrance by the Elite.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
so,
And that was a different one. That was another Elite tag team where they did something. There was a Space Jam entrance and there was the Halloween one.
yep.
I mean, there's too many. We could talk about moments in wrestling for the next hour, to be honest. Because and just this year, I mean, if we really wanted to get into last year, the year before that, there's just so many.
Well, and of course, we didn't talk about the moment where Bandito finally became ROH World Champion, because that was
Yeah,
such a
because that doesn't count as a good moment for me.
Oh, actually, there was actually 2 spots on the same show that I really should mention here too, as like oh my god moments, because where Jordan Oliver hit the cloud cutter from the top of the ropes through the
Yep.
tables on Atticus Kogar, and when Jimmy Lloyd
Jimmy Rick.
did that rolling Finley roll through the ropes through a door on, was it G Raver?
Yeah.
Yeah, those, because those are just like moments I had to say, like stand up and say, oh my god.
Well, it's like I said on Monday, on Wednesday when MJF like did that move, I stood up and did a Joey Styles. Oh my god, because I just couldn't believe that anyone would walk away from that, and especially the way that was a Cash that literally rolled over the seconds later to check on him, and the ref left the ring to go out and check on him. That was, you don't want to call a clearly missed spot a moment, but that's one that's going to stick in my head for a long time. And luckily, I mean, and it's, maybe Sting should have just thrown him over the rope instead of trying to hip toss him. because MJF had to put a little more momentum on it to clear the ropes. He definitely clearly overshot FTR, who was there to catch him. But the one thing that I did notice when I watched the replay is that he realized he fucked up. And did you notice how his arms got down in front of him to slow his roll before he hit his head?
No, I didn't notice that.
So yeah, it's just amazing. That it's just, and I hate to say it because the guy damn near killed himself. But if I have to look back at things this year that I'm never going to forget, that's one of them.
Yeah. Great year for moments, great year for singles wrestling, great year for tag teams. I mean, it's really been, it's been a fun year in pro wrestling for sure.
Well, there too. And if we look at it, where do you put the top storyline of the year? Like what would you say was the absolute best storyline this year?
Well, I don't see how
I've got
go ahead. Sorry.
I've got 3 or 4 that I could throw right up there into the mix. And one of them, ironically, was only a 1-month storyline, and that's Kingston versus CM Punk. I learned so much about Eddie Kingston as a man and as a performer in that month that he legitimately jumped to one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. Just from the stuff that he's gone through in his career. And then when you look back at his career and see how well he's performed and the things he's done, that's a storyline. And that being a really short storyline, that still is up there and qualifies for me. And then you look at the ZSJ storyline that started the G1, where he was tapping out all these, the top wrestlers in the promotion. We could, of course, obviously the Hangman Page storyline that culminated and is still continuing with his anxiety and his not sure that he's really good enough to hold the belt, that type of stuff. The Kenny storyline with him being the belt collector, Christian Cage coming in and winning the Impact title and bringing it back. There's so many stories that were fantastic again this year.
Tony Depp and Ron Funches.
Yep, Tony Depp and Ron Funches. All the Matt Cardona stuff.
All the Matt Cardona stuff. Jordan Oliver versus Atticus Cogar was incredible
was
for about 3.
Yep.
That took about I don't know 2.5 months to tell that story.
Yeah,
something like that. The entire the whole Foundation versus Violence Unlimited versus La Faccione Gornable in Ring of Honor was incredible.
The Briscoes starting the year together, kind of tailing off, fighting each other, then coming back together was a great story.
Yep. As much as I used to dislike him, the return of Mike Bennett to Ring of Honor and his storyline with the OGK this year and trying to keep Matt Taven sane was incredible.
And Matt Taven versus Vincent.
Yes,
was incredible. It just the whole Moose versus everybody storyline. It was fantastic. There's so many. This is probably the toughest year I've ever had of picking clear cut.
Going back to GCW, also the Jimmy Lloyd versus G Raver storyline.
Yep.
I mean, you and I did not get on the ground for that because that started 2 years ago. But I mean, just this year with them going into Mexico and winning back the GCW World Tag Titles and then losing them to SGC and then that starting that feud between the two of them and then them teaming up again later on in the year. I mean, those guys, just a little bit we saw of that was fantastic. So and honestly, you mentioned the G1 and other fans that are not you and I would say, well, what about the storyline of Jeff Cobb being undefeated going into the finals against Okada, who only had 1 loss?
Exactly. There was another good one. Another. Want to look at some other stories, and 3 of them came to my mind as you were talking. Now I can't remember them all, but 440 versus Nick Gage.
Yep.
That was a great storyline. Like I said, we said everything Matt Cardona did was fantastic.
And I personally really enjoyed and partly because the matches were so fantastic all on every iteration of them, but Dangerous Tekkers versus Sonata and Naito was
Yeah, and
outstanding.
I
So
unfortunately didn't get to watch that whole thing. The Will Ospreay versus Shibata storyline uh, has been fantastic, and I know you haven't watched much of it. It's not a direct versus Shibata, but he's really directing it versus Shibata's students. Oh, and that reminds me, when I was looking stuff up earlier today, guess what I found out?
what's that?
Wrestle Kingdom 16, night 1, match number 5 on the card. Katsuyori Shibata versus TBA.
Yeah, I saw that, but I would be more excited if I knew who TBA was and if it actually and it was going if it was going to be a real wrestling match and not another one of those exhibitions, you know. So
I really believe it's going to be him versus Osprey, to be honest.
well, Osprey is I guess it could be, but Osprey is wrestling night. Does Osprey not already have a match on night one?
Osprey does not have a match on night 1, and
Okay,
both Shingo and Okada do, because they're going to face whoever that winner is faces Osprey on night 2.
correct.
The other thing that I saw here on night 2 is a new faction within a faction.
Oh, the House of Torture.
Yeah, with Evil, Takahashi, and Show.
Yeah.
And Dick Togo. Kind of weird that they would do a faction with inside a faction, but I guess that's what Bullet Club is known for, because remember the Elite.
I think it's so funny that Conrad Thompson calls Dick Togo Dick to go.
Yeah, it makes me laugh every time I hear it. But yeah, I don't know. I think we're past an hour here, so maybe we can continue this next week. And
Yeah.
maybe with the rest of our awards, we'll have something a little clearer. But I think those 3 that we talked about, well, 4 when you bring in storyline, there's really no clear-cut favorite for me anyway in
Yeah.
any of them. I know for you had Kenny. For me, I can't pick between Kenny and Danielson.
Well,
I
for
just can't.
for story of the year, I mean, I don't see how you can top the Omega versus Page storyline. So
It's hard to, but that's also a 3-year story, not a 1-year story.
but
So
even what they did this year with it was, you know, Page was number one contender and lost and ended up having to go away for a while because he lost that 10-man tag, and
right,
then coming back and the feud since
and winning
then.
the Casino Battle Royal, and then getting back into number 1 contention, and then actually having the match. Yeah, and they did with that match exactly what I wish they would do with all matches, where they immediately they came out and they said, your match is at Full Gear. It's not next week or 2 weeks from now on some special edition of Dynamite. We're saving this match till Full Gear. I
Yeah,
wish
I know
they'd do that.
that's been a real pet peeve for you lately.
It's really been a pet peeve because I feel like they kind of rush things a little bit. You saw how good that ended up being with him versus Kenny, because we got that Halloween skit with the Stay Puff. We got other things in between there with promos and things like that, where you saw how good they can draw out these stories. Sometimes it
Yeah,
just annoys me when it's rushed.
it doesn't it just doesn't always make sense to do it, and I will keep telling you over and over until it sinks into your head or the feud's over that Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page, those two characters, it does not make sense for them to delay things. So
No, it doesn't, but they delay things every week. When Page comes out to try and start to fight him and Danielson runs away.
that's true. All right, guys. So next week we will cover more on the match of the year and maybe the rising star of the year, other things like that. So, and we'll probably do a short preview at least of Wrestle Kingdom, since it'll be the following few days after our next show. So
We just got our short preview. There's only 3 matches I care about, and I just read them off. Just saying.
next time, guys, this is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
Goodbye.